Welcome back to the show. It is the first recording of 2025 and we are excited to be back. Woo, yay. So we've had a little break towards the tail end of the year, and as always, we are fresh and excited to share more content. It's the day after Valentine's Day, as a matter of fact. It's the 15th of February. And it's good. It's good to be back, fresh and ready for some new exciting things. If you are new here, this is the Strength in Motion Show, an audio experience to bring education about helping you bring functional fitness and better routines into your life. We are a 24/7 gym based out of Midvale, Western Australia, and our goal is to make functional fitness practical and achievable for people who want to lift, move, and feel better without the classic and boring egotistical gym nonsense. If you do intend on lifting and moving better, well, you better start learning. If you want to get your head around the functional way more, you can start at the beginning of this podcast list of the episode series 1 to 5, in which we outlay the foundational pillars of movement, nutrition, sleep, and stress. Our YouTube channel is our next destinations, with lessons and videos curated to further support your understanding on how you can train properly towards your goals. Today's episode is one that needs to be talked about: the real effort behind elite training and the crazy reality behind fitness influencers and pro athletes, and sometimes the misleading information that comes from that space. Despite the title, this episode is more about how everyday people can set achievable results in a realistic way. As experienced coaches ourselves, we find that athletes tend to push themselves far too hard, whereas the everyday person tends to not push themselves hard enough. Both behaviors diminish results. So before we dive into things, we should be welcoming to the mic Navar. How are ye?
Good, I'm great.
Yeah?
I had a good Valentine's with my now fiance.
Yes,
which was lovely.
You did. I didn't even hear about it. I didn't ask. How was it?
Yeah, good. It was pretty chill.
Did you surprise her?
Yeah, just surprised her with a nice katsu chicken dinner.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah,
with a laptop and a to-do list, do some work.
Yeah, I made her do the laundry. No, we just relaxed. I bought her like a little care package, some chocolate and sweets and stuff. Yeah, just all the cute little things. But yeah, life is good. Life is good.
Women love chocolate, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
Most women do,
especially
anyway.
Ocean.
That's good. That's the way to win them over.
But I'm excited for this podcast.
Yes, absolutely. Me too. Just excited for podcasting in general. There's a lot more energy in the podcasting space for us, and doing more episodes this year as well, which we're excited to actually pump out more.
Yeah.
More content for the people.
For you.
Look, random life updates for me as well. Life's going well. I've fully settled into this house that I'm semi-renovating, and then we've got the puppy there as well. And having a puppy is reminding me of the mammal behaviours, how much it is to have a... it reminds me that I'm still a mammal and my own mammalian behaviours as well. It's a really great feedback mechanism as well. When are you going to get a puppy, Nav?
Probably when we get our property.
Yes.
Yeah, we want to get 2 dogs right off the bat, get them together.
2 quarter bollies?
Yes, yeah. Kelpie Border Collies.
Oh, Kelpie Border Collies, like a half and half or a 1 each?
I want a half and half, so I want a black Kelpie cross Border Collie.
Yeah.
And I want it to be more on the black side, because I just love the black Kelpie that I used to grow up with.
Yeah.
OCM wants either purebred Border Collie, which she'll probably go with the purebred.
Are you going to try and rescue, or are you going to try and...
No, try rescue always, but we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah.
It'll probably be hard to find a Border Collie cross Kelpie, especially as a rescue.
Yeah, it is a fair point. There is, when I was looking for puppies and I was looking for dogs, you can actually search crossbreeds, but you definitely have to be patient. You have to give yourself like a 12 to 24 month window if you really want that specific breed to come up, because you might have one that comes up and then that one's an absolute psychopath.
Yeah.
And then you're like, this ain't it, so I'm going to wait again. So should we test the mystery sound? See what our first mystery sound's going to be?
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. We go.
There's only a few. Nothing.
All right, that's the mystery sound. Mystery sound? No, we've got to wait for the next one. All right, ba-bam. So, in today's topic, we're talking about movement training, the truth about elite effort. We really want to uncover, or at least bring more of, shed some light on the understanding of what it actually takes, and help people really set more realistic and achievable goals. Nav, can you tell me maybe a story or two related to your experience and why this is relevant for you to want to talk about this?
Well, funny enough, the thing that comes to mind, which I did write here, is the conversation that we had when your client asked you, what do I really need to do to get the results? And I remember that conversation because we work with a lot of general population, and it's okay that they don't have much information or education on what it takes or what even body composition is, right?
Yeah.
For a lot of people that we work with, they're coming through and they want to look a certain way, which is a complete body composition shift, but they don't even understand the difference between muscle, fat, and then body fat percentage and all the above. So this is an exciting topic because every single individual that we work with come to us with some sort of expectation, especially, which we'll dive into later, given that social media has really skewed our expectations of what's possible within our own physical body and within certain time frames. So it's not any like specific individual, it's just every single individual that we've ever worked with or that I work with specifically, unless they're someone that's aiming towards bodybuilding or being an athlete and they're the top of their game, so they already have an understanding, awareness of what's possible in the time frame that it takes. Every single person I ever work with, and we experience this with all of our members, the hundreds of members that we have, thousands of people that come through our door in the last 8 years, 99% of them have expectations that aren't realistic.
Yeah.
And so this podcast is really exciting because we get to break that down and then hopefully bring some peace to some people's journey.
Yeah.
So for a lot of people, they will have this expectation, and when they don't get the results they want within 4 weeks' time, they beat themselves up and then they yo-yo back and forth because they feel like they're not getting anywhere. When in fact they might have gotten exactly where they need to be. They're just unaware of what that looks like.
Yeah, I get that as well. It's very easy to. The unfortunate thing is the beginners are the most naive. They're the most uneducated about the topic, and for many people, and not just the fitness industry, in all industries, the naive are the easiest to sell to. And it's not just selling products and services; it's selling ideas. And selling
a dream, something that is not possible for many people.
It's a shame because the dream is what sells for a lot of the time as well, and so it's navigating that line of ethics. But that's where we come in. We're really trying to we're spending our time putting this content out to help kind of balance the playing field, at least for our clientele and our members anyway. I also want to bring up a little, the spark for this conversation actually came from a conversation with one of my clients as well, and she came from high level tennis, like high level tennis. She was in the top couple of hundred in the world. So she's in a sport that's like highly regulated, or was in a sport that's highly regulated. Whereas as she's been just experiencing and experimenting with different types of sports and modalities, she is stepping in and out. She played with high rocks. She played with CrossFit as well. And then she spends a lot of time on social media. And she was genuinely shocked about when she recently discovered how many people are using PEDs and steroids. And then I ended up being shocked that she was shocked, because I just thought it was because my world is looking in this space so much, and it's very easy for us to recognize if people are cutting corners and not. But for people that are uneducated and they don't see people's physiques transform very regularly, it's very easy to assume that someone is just the way they are through pure hard work and that's it. Whereas,
especially with steroid use, performance enhancing drugs, PEDs, because now that line is getting a little bit more blurred. Now, like what is TRTs more acceptable now because assuming you're using it to get to a base level. But then again, if you're not doing foundational habits and things to work on yourself, but you're using TRT to get you there, what other negative effects are there? So those lines are getting really blurred. I remember having that conversation with your client as well. Once you have that conversation and discussing how common PEDs are and everything, not just sport, but especially influencer space and social media these days.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of PEDs, should we have our steroid shots? And we have bought these from the service station. I just put a bit of fuel in my car. We've got trenbolone, and we've got Anavar and testosterone, and a bit of ginger. No,
a bit of Psalms.
A bit of Psalms in here. So we've got an immunity shot from U-Foods, which is just on the shop really. 10% refund. The thing I'm going to take home. I've got one of those little bags that we collect. Families now collecting all them recycling things, you know.
Nice.
So we've got apple, lemon, turmeric, and ginger.
I would like to say this is out of date, but anyway.
Is it?
It's 3 days out of date, my one, but it doesn't matter.
Where's the label on? Oh, here we go. Yeah. Used by the
12th.
No, I got 2503 here.
Oh, you scanned me. You gave me the 12th of the 2nd.
Well, who knew? Yeah, all right. Maybe I don't know what year it is. It might be 2020.
Mine's 2025. Beautiful. Were you sending it all in one hit?
Yeah, that's generally how I do my shots.
Yeah, okay. Cheers.
Glug this one down. Oh. I rate that.
That's pretty crazy.
That was deluscious.
Hydrating.
It was actually very satisfying. The ginger just hit my throat. All right.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So, what does it really take to be elite? Most people train a few times a week. Commonly, especially the beginners in our field, we try and encourage people to start with training a few times a week, because a lot of people are often going from no routine to a routine. So, going too hard too early, a lot of people love to be like, I want to train 4 days a week, 5 days a week, 6 days a week. And people are confused really why we're at this point. I even had a client come up to my class this week. This was 2 days ago. Someone came up to me and she goes, is this class really enough to get beneficial results? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And then she's like, so if I do this mobility class 2 to 3 times a week, I'll really get a toned body? And I was like, absolutely not. And then she's like, what are you on about? And I'm like, what are you on about? So I've wrote my notes here just so I remember the conversation. But she had genuine disappointment on her face because she genuinely thought that she could just do my mobility class, which is like an active mobility class. She thought she could do that 2 to 3 times a week. I guess she was hoping that she could do that and get this toned body that she's chasing. And then I kind of followed around the class and I was chatting to her and she's like, I have a friend who did Pilates and she swears by Pilates and it changed her life. And I was like, but Pilates is, I literally said, there's no way Pilates alone will give you that toned body that you're talking about. She was like, well, she's the same as me. Why can't I do that? And I'm like, look, first of all, tone is actually related to your muscle mass. And so in order to be stimulating muscle mass, you need to be doing some sort of hypertrophy training, which a lot of Pilates classes don't necessarily get. There are Pilates strength aspects, and I'm not saying Pilates is bad, but to build that toned body, usually the most of the Pilates girls are actually quite naturally that way.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm naturally that way too. And I'm like, but there's so many nuances to your training and your lifestyles. Like, is she as stressed as you? And does she eat like you? Your lifestyle must be so vastly different to hers, as is everybody's. And she was like, oh, actually, my stress is through the roof, X, Y, Z, and blah, blah, blah. But really what was surprising for me again was whether she was misinformed or she just wanted to believe to try it because she's so busy, it still shocked me to realize how many people just believe that they can get these results from such little work. And it makes sense because that's what the messaging is being put out. And I understand, again, that's what sells. That's what sells. They're those messages that spread those fast results. Everybody wants fast results.
That's why Ozempic is so popular.
Oh, don't get me started.
Costs hundreds of dollars a month, and yet people just take Ozempic.
Jab it.
Crazy.
Yeah. But that's, it's easy. It's the easier and faster result. And people are always going to want to explore the easier and faster result or option, explore the faster option first before they get into things. So, look, I really had to spend a bit of time explaining that no single discipline can actually do that. And it really is always, as we talk about in our podcast, it's a combination of many things, inclusive of your lifestyle, your nutrition, and your stress management in conjunction with the training volume. Volume being the amount of training that you do.
Yeah.
And generally speaking, if someone's not getting the result they need, the volume needs to increase to some degree.
And that's where Pilates lacks, right? Because it lacks intensity and volume in many ways.
Exactly right, especially for that physique that she was after.
Yeah.
So moving on for Pilates, let's go into something that really the fitness industry is built from, and that's bodybuilding. So Nav, talk us through, let's say, the standard week of a pro bodybuilder and even maybe like an elite CrossFitter or high rocks athlete. Let's talk about what the elites are actually getting up to.
Yeah, beautiful. So I'll dive into the bodybuilding to start off. So there is a misconception around, okay, if you want to be a pro bodybuilder and you want to look the best that you can, that you need to train every single day. And so many pro bodybuilders can get away with 4 days of training depending on how much time they're spending within the gym on those days. But then other bodybuilders or people that I work with specifically, I could use James Street for example, he was doing 5 days a week because his intensity on those days were high, and he was able to do 5 days of training. So as a pro, you're probably looking at 4 to 6 days a week, most likely around the 5 to 6 as a pro. And you're looking at anywhere from 90 minutes to 2.5 hours per session. If you're more of a sport athlete, like let's say if you're doing high rocks or CrossFit, that time, most like Olympic lifting, will be higher because the rest periods are far greater. Powerlifting is the perfect example. So when it comes down to technique-based or skill-based movements that take a lot out of your nervous system, so low reps, so anywhere below 6 reps, 6 or lower reps, are going to take longer in the gym. For the everyday person, you wouldn't have to spend that much time. But obviously, we're diving into elite levels. So safe bet, 5 to 6 days per week for weight training, 90 minutes per day as a pro athlete.
Yep.
Cardiovascular wise, so using James as an example as well, we were focusing on mostly steps per day. And so he was having to hit about 12K steps per day, and then those steps will increase depending on how far along in his bodybuilding journey he was, and then also how much stress he was having. And so that's another factor as well for everyday people and pro athletes is we could talk about going to the gym 5 to 6 days a week or hitting 12K steps every single day, but there might also come a point where you might need to pull that back just to allow more recovery.
Yeah.
Because just like a refeed day, which is someone might be eating 1,500 calories a day to get their weight down, especially for bodybuilding. But at some point they might plateau in their weight loss simply because the metabolism has just been, it's adapted to the 1,500 calories and it's just hasn't been fueled enough that maybe with one refeed day we eat like 2,500 or 3,000 calories, double the calories, but that might re-spark metabolism as well. So that gives you an idea of the weight training, cardio. For bodybuilding, you also need posing practice. So now we're talking about the actual sport itself.
The sport specifics, not even training. It's still training, but it's non-training.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's something that I've underestimated with another person before. I know you know who that is as well. That's something that we really underestimated in his bodybuilding comp was we didn't do enough posing within that federation. We should have actually taken into posing to meet with the judges and meet with the people there and done posing specific to the people that he's posing for. So as an elite athlete, you also need to recognize the rules and the training that it goes to actually succeed on stage or in that sport itself. And that I would say, like James, I was getting him to pose every single day. And I think not just from the place of getting good at posing, but the visualization, the mindfulness of doing it itself. And that's what got him gold. That's what got him silver. That's got him really firing, competing IFBB against people that were enhanced because IFBB isn't tested, and he was completely natural at like 59 kilos. So he was smaller dude on stage because of his posing being so good. He succeeded. And then on top of that, you got mobility, recovery, and even mindfulness, which is like journaling. He was journaling and doing breath work every single day. Because the amount of discipline it takes, which is kind of what we'll dive into later. It's a bit of a snippet I'm going to talk about later, is the difference between motivation and discipline. If you really want to succeed in any space, anything, no matter what it is, but we're talking about the body today, you need to have a level of discipline, and discipline comes from a level of mindset. Of knowing who you are, having self-awareness, and having the strength to stay true to that, even when you're low in motivation. And so you need to have some form of practice in goal setting, visualization, and recognizing why it is what you're doing. Otherwise, you're not going to show up to the gym 5 days a week. And I know we're talking about elite athletes, but then bringing that back to everyday people, they need to be training 3 to 5 days a week themselves with a level of intensity for them to really get the results that they want. Chances are they're not going to get the results if they're not hitting at least 3 days a week of some form of intense training that's going to test their mind and body.
Yes, absolutely. And that intensity is a sliding scale as well for many people. Is that you're finding your version of intense. And as we said, like many people come in too intense because they're chasing that same intensity of the people that they aspire to be like. And I've been like that as well. I've made my own mistakes there. And again, that's what we're trying to highlight, is the fact that yes, there is a lot of work that needs to be done. But if you really try and replicate the same intensity that our heroes are putting in, they got to that intensity by starting at wherever their starting point and continuously finding that edge as well. Because intensity takes a lot. And intensity itself is kind of a muscle. Getting used to that, training the intensity muscle and getting familiar with that. And
also recognizing, are they doing performance enhancing drugs? What sort of food are they eating? How much sleep are they getting? How busy are their lifestyles? Because a lot of the people that we work with, and probably a lot of our listeners, have full-time jobs, they have a family, they have other responsibilities outside of their work. Puppies, cats.
Cats,
They take a lot. So you have all these responsibilities where, although we're using the elite athlete as an example, but that's the perfect example, is these elite athletes are also doing all this work accompanied by all the recovery, all the sleep, all the time that they spend eating food. Most of my clients struggle to eat lunch because they're caught up at work and they don't take that time for lunch. So,
Absolutely. Let's just touch base on Mr. Olympia, because we did a bit of research of the current classic Mr. Well, no, he is the current still. He's retired now, but he's still the current he just won his last one a couple of months ago, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Chris Bumstead, we're talking about. We just did a research into exactly what he was putting out, and that is 5 to 6 days a week, sometimes 7 that he's hinted, and like minimum 90 minutes per session. They often do double days as well, so they'll train in the morning, train in the evening, and then that kind of adds up to past 2 hours as well as the cardio 5 to 6 times a week, which is where some of these double sessions come in. And then on top of that is all of the rehab, the recovery, and then on top of that is all the media work that he has to do because he is a celebrity as well. And it's just such a high volume of things. But what happens is these people have, because they have the high volume, they have these people following them around, putting media content out there, filming them, and that means that their training routines are the easiest to research, but they're the easiest to try and copy because there's so much information out there. And a similar thing goes for, there's another 3 times Miss Olympia winner, which is Andrea Shaw, and she's on a similar thing. In her off season, she's on 5 to 6 days per week, 90 minutes minimum per session. On her contest prep, then she's going up to 2 hours per session with 6 days per week. Her cardio is also 3 to 4 in the contest at 6 to 7, and then her posing practice is like a couple of times per week or sometimes double days as well. With the recovery, the mobility, it's a full-on week on top of their professional lives of their doing the media and navigating all the sponsorship deals and all of that. And again, we have to remember that they are professional and highly conditioned, and as we also know, they are chemically supported as well to handle that volume, and that's why the elite can, because they've got all that background. They're getting massages every day pretty much and so on. Do you want to is anything else regarding that you want to talk about, James, and some of your other clients that you've talked about?
No, I think we covered it pretty well, to be honest.
Well, let's jump over to the endurance scene, because that's something that I'm familiar with, and especially with in Australia and Perth, around the world, how running is really, really kicking off. The getting into triathlon and getting into the marathon and ultramarathon scene actually shocked me, because I was coming from the background of you can't train the same muscle group 2 days in a row. That's a big thing in the bodybuilding scene, and people are quite concerned about training too hard and injuring themselves and having lots of break between. Whereas when you get into the endurance scene, all of these guys are actually running every day, back to back. And when I was training, I was running every day back to back, and I was confused and shocked by that as well. So 2 famous British triathletes known as the Brownlee brothers, there's Alistair and Johnny. They have one of the most famous like finish line videos where one of the brothers this was probably maybe 15 years ago now, where one of the brothers was like fully shutting down before the end of the race, and his brother just like picked him up and just dragged him across the line, and his brother's like going into like not cardiac arrest, just like a full shutdown, really wobbly, pale white. And that's why I use this example, because they're quite well known. It's quite a famous scene about grit and resilience. But these guys are training and moving time 30 to 35 hours per week on average. And I follow these guys on social media. They're at the tail end of their careers, and they're still training 7 days a week. And it blows my mind that they're pumping out these volumes. But swimming, 20 to 25 kilometers a week. They're swimming, they're cycling 500 to 700 kilometers a week. They are also running up to 120 kilometers a week, which is just, it is profound. If you think 120 kilometers alone, fitting that into a week is basically a half marathon a day. You're getting between the 15 to 20 Ks of running per day, plus 100 Ks, 50 to 100 Ks of cycling per day with the, it's
absurd.
Yeah, it's absurd.
It's a full-time job.
Yep. And then you've got to do your strength work on top of that, which is minimum 2 gym sessions a week. They try and get to about 3. And then I follow a guy called, I hope I can get his name correct. It's Alexander Sorokin. He is the Lithuanian, well, he's the world record, but he's Lithuanian, 100-kilometer world record holder. This guy he held a pace for 100 Ks faster than I can hold 5 kilometers for. He ran like a 3:30 pace, if anyone knows what a 3:30 pace is.
For the whole 100 kilometers?
It's fucked.
That's insane.
Literally fucked.
I don't think I could run a kilometer. I could definitely do that, actually.
Yeah, I could probably...
You could definitely do that, nothing about it.
Yeah, you could hammer it, but I just can't believe. But when he actually, like, he publicly posts every single week what his training week was and total volume was. So he doesn't take any rest days. His rest day is a 1 run day. all of his other days are 2 runs per day. He runs in the morning and then he runs at night, 6 days a week. And then on the 7th day, he just runs in the morning and then takes a rest afternoon. That's his rest day. His rest day is a rest arvo. But that's the necessary volume required to be that elite. It was just absolutely unbelievable how fast he did. And it adds up to about 300 Ks a week on average. 300 Ks. It blows my mind. So
was he doing strength and conditioning as well? Was he doing some form of strength and conditioning?
He does. He definitely
Surely
does.
he does. Yeah.
But I don't know exactly how much he does and how he goes about it. I know that he's got like a physio, whether it's mate or he just mates with his physio now. But he's got a pretty regimented like recovery routine. But but this is as a natural athlete as well, because the world records like this are heavily sanctioned. Is that the word? Heavily sanctioned, heavily monitored. Yeah. So. Yeah, it blows my mind. And when I saw that, I was like, well, I think I can dial back from running. I'm not going to be at that level anytime soon. It was a very humbling experience just to be able to be a part of this guy's journey and watch what happened. And I also had an ex-PT client. He went on to train with Matt Burton, which is WA's current fastest Ironman, and he's won a couple of championships. Well, I shouldn't say championships. He's won a couple of Ironmans recently. And my client, so we call him Berto. Berto, not my client, Matt Burton. Berto has a reputation for doing high volume, which is why I wanted to bring this up. But my client was with me for the Ironman 70.3, like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And then he moved on and spent most of last year training with Berto to do his debut Ironman in December just gone, which was an Ironman is a 3.8 kilometer swim. No, it's a 3.6 kilometer swim into a 180 kilometer bike ride into a full marathon, which is 42.2. And this guy, my client, ended up running the full marathon was faster than I would be able to run a marathon even if I trained for it. Right. So he was, and I caught up with him and went through his volume. So he was swimming up to 6 to 10 kilometers per week. He was running 60 to 100 kilometers per week and cycling 300 to 600 kilometers per week. It was an outstanding amount of volume. And he literally spoke to me, he goes, man, those last 4 months I was on autopilot my whole entire life. Yeah. He was like, I was going to work just to get the bare minimum done. I was going home in my relationship and just getting the bare minimum done. Every other aspect of his life is getting the bare minimum done. But I have a lot of training partners that spend this time in the Ironman scene, and they're all averaging 20 to 25 hours per week, which is literally the elite levels. And then for generally in the ultra marathon scene, it's 12 to 17 per week for ultra marathon. A lot of the ultra marathon runners, it's common to be running a half marathon every day, which is 21.1. And it just, the guys, generally the elites, are trying to run a minimum of 3,000 kilometers per year, which is enough to pretty much cross the width of Australia, which blows my mind. So when you are training for these events, you actually have to look at the total volume of the event, and then you work your way back and you backtrack into these things. And so I've got a lot of experience on understanding how heavy the volume is, and I will arrogantly say that most people I know don't have it in them to put that much volume in as well. But also a lot of people do. But when people come to me and they say, I want to run ultra marathons, I want to do Ironmans and stuff, I'll sit them down and have the honest conversation, and I'll start showing them. That was our first camera. The camera just dropped out. I'll finish that sentence. I start showing them the volume, and once they see the volume, we're actually able to take a much more clearer decision on setting a proper goal. Oh man, I got so down the liver king rabbit hole.
Yeah. Big hole.
Ooge hole. All right, we're back. We sorted that camera out with our mystery sound number 2. Actually, hit it, Nav. Go for it.
Let's do it.
I just like anime and I love Pokemon and I like being here.
Hey, I do like anime.
Yeah.
I don't know what the second part was.
Pokemon.
It was?
I just like anime and I love Pokemon and I like being here.
Dude, sounds toasted, eh?
Sounds like some sort of American rapper. You know when they don't close their words off? Pokemon and
anime.
It must be like a flavor of rap, because then you get a whole new vocabulary where you don't finish your words and you get a whole new set of rhymes.
Yeah.
I'm not going to rap.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about steroid and PED use, PED use, because steroids were the thing that was talked about back in the day, but the PEDs and the peptides, they just keep finding their ways into sport, even in the Australian scene when the whole Essendon scandal came up when they were using
the whole entire
peptides.
team.
And the team didn't even realise. They didn't even know. They were just rocking up to training and rocking up to work, and they were just following orders from the coaches and the coaching staff. So hopefully we can shed a bit of light on. One of the funniest things that it's I think it's funny for you and I, because when we looked at this individual, we were like, oh, of course this guy's juiced AF. But then when the world found out that this guy was juiced AF, so it was shocking how many people didn't understand. And I was like, wow, I really feel like I've been living under a rock and realizing how many misinformed people are. And that is the Liver King.
Yeah.
Liver King is, if you don't know, he was promoting the barbarian lifestyle in I think the 7 or the 10 ancestral tenets, which is really just, he was, as far as nutrition goes, it was carnivore-based food. His strength training was all about powerlifting, an old school strength training method with the barbells and the heavy
sleds, farmer carries.
Real outdoor. He's got like a garage shed that he was working with, and he was a big fan of Westside Barbell. He used all the Westside Barbell training protocols, which is some crews out there, Westside Barbell, OGs back in the day.
Legends.
But he was just huge. He was just fucking massive. and he was just making all these videos of him eating like the raw eggs and the liver and stuff. And look, like, there's nothing really that wrong with carnivore, but he was really milking the fact that, there's pretty a pun there, he was milking it. He was milking the fact that people are naive, and he was milking the fact that when you take something that's so far out of what the ordinary is, it's too hard for people to differentiate what's good, what's right, and what's wrong, because they don't have that baseline level of knowledge. Which means when it's so far away, there's nothing to really counteract that. And when you look at a guy, and he even looked a bit barbarian. He was never wearing a shirt on.
I don't think he ever showered. I don't think he showers.
Fuck. He looks like he stinks.
Yeah, he does apparently. Apparently he stinks real bad.
Fuck. Yeah, you should. Anyway, I went back on his Instagram like just before we started recording, and he's still, anyway.
Yeah, well, you even wrote it here that he got caught out because an email that he sent off to his doctor about the steroid use that he takes and about his insecurities was leaked. And everyone found out he was spending 11 grand a month on steroids.
Yeah, 11,000.
I remember when he got caught and then he came out with a video and he started doing these videos talking about how he's now natural and he's going to share his whole entire journey of him being natural now. However, that did stop. He did stop posting that. He did stop sharing his natty journey. So I wonder if he's still on the journey of being natural since his steroid use, or he's back on steroids. I wouldn't be surprised if he's back on steroids, because there's a lot of people that I've followed. I've been in the space for 15 years, but there's a lot of people that shared their journeys about being on steroids, then going off of steroids, and how hard life was moving off of steroids into natty life. And like $11,000 of steroids a month. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a lot of negatives of taking steroids out of his life. So
it's a rich, very wealthy barbarian.
Yeah, well, like you mentioned, he made millions of dollars because people believed, because he wasn't honest with people about his steroid use, that the 7 tenets were the way that he got to that level.
Yeah.
And so he was selling the idea that if you take my supplements, if you live life the way that I live my life, you'll look the way that I do. And that's what a lot of influencers do.
Yeah.
Which is why we're doing this podcast.
Yeah. I've just got here, so drugs that he was using: Omnitrope, which is a pharmaceutical HGH, human growth hormone, which is apparently where this 11K per month was mostly being consumed by.
Yep.
He was also taking testosterone cypionate, so it's cypionate. He was taking Winstrol, never heard of that. He was taking Decadurabolin, insulin, and Anavar. I don't think insulin's really an illegal substance.
I think it is.
Unless you're a non-diabetic then.
Yeah, and a lot of people do take it illegal. You know, they get it.
Yeah, I see.
But they inject it around their training sessions so that when they take carbs and when they work out, it pumps right into the muscle. Yeah,
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's...
Insulin's pretty common in bodybuilding, hey?
Yeah, that would make sense. But multiple lawsuits accusing him of fraud and misleading customers into buying his supplements. So that was a big one. Liver King's probably the most common one.
Yeah.
We've also got, so Sam Sulek is a young fella who's just fucking massive.
Huge.
Now, he's actually been quite, he hasn't been like open about it, but the thing that really, he was getting accused of being on steroids, and his response by acknowledging was being like, it's fucking obvious, isn't it? So he had that kind of sarcastic remark, but initially to actually get started, he was him being honest about his steroid use was a reactive opening, honesty, as opposed to a proactive. So he wasn't going out saying it. He just waited until people started accusing him, and then he was like, what do you mean it's obvious, right? So I think he's done it in a good way, but in order for him to get from zero to where he is now, it was heavily by just people not understanding, be like, who the fuck is this man child and who is this guy? So anyway, that's a thing. And then we've got to a couple of CrossFit athletes. So very, very recently, hopefully I get his name right, Ivan Kukatsev in the 2024 Asia semi-final. He was the semi-final winner. He actually had metabolites of, I don't actually know what these are, but these are banned substances, GW1516 and LGD4033. So he got a 2-year sanction starting pretty much right after his race. And then this is cool for Nav, because Nav was actually watching this in 2017. I think it's Ricky Garrard.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think so.
Ricky Garrard. Ricky, we're watching it now. 2017. This is a while ago, but he was he finished third, and he was stripped of that
In CrossFit. Yeah, one of the greatest Australian CrossFit athletes, and I like his character. I like watching him, and when he got done for steroid use and he got caught, that was a bit of a thing for the industry. However, it wasn't surprising. Like we've been watching this for a long time. There's a lot of steroid use and PEDs in CrossFit, and in, like I mentioned, even just influencers. Yeah. Like the people that aren't even pro athletes, but they gain income from social media, or maybe they're insecure, so they take steroids and PED. But I wasn't surprised by the fact that he takes it. Yeah, and that's even like, it's a big conversation in the UFC and the fighting, the MMA scene. How a lot of fighters can just stop. They can, they delist themselves effectively. They just stop competing and they disappear on their training camps, and they spend a year or two working on their deficits. And during those times, they can actually go on cycle of a handful of things or a bunch of things, and then they can re-enter what's called the testing pool, which means they're now listed to be eligible for being tested. And it's more heavily regulated these days, but in the earlier days of the sport, it wasn't. And like Brock Lesnar coming to the UFC, that was wild. Clearly juiced, but he's just a truck. He was just a truck, and he got a title, right? He went straight to the top. He beat Mark Hunt, and that was like a big thing at the time. But that was his return anyway. Yeah. So look, we could spend all day on this, but there's some other stuff that we actually want to go through and talk more about. We don't need to go through steroids. Maybe we do a whole podcast on steroids, maybe. And all those PEDs. So PEDs, by the way, stands for performance enhancing drugs, if someone's wondering, which is more of the umbrella term for, because there's just so many chemicals, things, and you could basically have something that's a banned substance, and you can start to tweak these things just a little bit, and then it's no longer banned. But if you put it under the umbrella of PEDs, at least the public understands that this individual is using some sort of performance enhancing drug. That's what we mean by PED, by the way. So, what do we got on the camera? So we got about 9 minutes. That's fucking easy. Nice. Mystery sound number 3.
Cunt.
Oh, Jesus.
Of course, Josh gets that one.
Whoops.
Beep.
Carry, everybody.
Beep.
Didn't mean to do that. Don't press the yellow one, the third one. We should have tested these before. Well, that doesn't make it a mystery sound, does it?
No.
Set us up, didn't they? All right. Okay. So, why does this misinformation hurt people, Nav? Why are we bringing this stuff up?
Yeah, so I already kind of covered it before, but people starving themselves for months at a time, people not following the whole entire journey because they will reach, and it's crazy, like a 4-week block. And it's so surprising to me that this happens, but also not unexpected in many ways. But they'll reach a 4-week block and they don't get the result that they want, not recognizing the lack of habits or the habits that they did have, poor and good, within that 1 month. But because their expectations within that month of what they can achieve is so skewed, they will then yo-yo and stop following the plan. They'll start to just beat themselves up and go off. They fall off the wagon because their expectations are so unrealistic.
Yeah.
And that's a massive one. Or they continue to starve themselves.
Yeah.
They run away from the whole entire journey. And I think that's the biggest thing that the misinformation impacts people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Should we dive into the clips now?
Yeah, let's do it.
Should we do it now?
Yeah.
Because I have a really good clip. This is actually, so I don't know how we're going to do this. I'll play the clip and then we are going to overlay this in the podcast so people will actually see it.
In post.
In a post.
Post-editing.
In post-editing.
Post-editing.
I do think the start of this clip is silent, so you might not hear us for like 10 seconds.
Do you want to spin your mic around, turn your laptop volume up full?
Yeah.
And then I think I turn your mic, and I think.
I do this all day, yeah. I do this all day, yeah. I get off work and put in more work. I do this all day.
You failed. You mean 17 months. I can attain that body after 2 weeks. You doing something wrong, buddy. You don't look like you work out at all. The amount of hate this guy got was mind-blowing. I honestly feel like social media has ruined people's perceptions of what humans look like. I am 37 years old. I have been lifting weights for 20 years now. Consistently as fuck. As well. I don't secretly take drugs or secretly Photoshop my photos and videos. After 2 decades, this is...
So yeah, I'll leave it there. We will link this so people could really see the whole entire video. And I definitely recommend checking out this video of Ben Carpenter because he's responding to... So what we're watching right now is the initial clip that Ben Carpenter is reacting to. Is this guy that's been training for 17 years and he shared just his physique with no specific lighting. And you and I understand that, but for a lot of people that look at physiques on social media, they don't understand that majority of these people probably being pumped up, even oiled up, tanned, and then they're getting specific lighting, which changes the whole entire physique. They're angling themselves. The good thing is there are a lot of people also in the social media space, men and women, that are actually showing unflexed versus flex, good lighting versus bad lighting sort of imagery. But this guy that Ben Carpenter is responding to, 17 years of training, 5 days a week of training, and the amount of hate that he got on that post. So many people saying that he's doing it wrong, that they could get better results in 2 weeks, etc. Ben then goes on to show his physique, which is unreal. Like Ben is top of his game, natural. He's been on, I think he was actually on the Men's Fitness magazine. Yeah, and he's done a lot of photo shoots, men's physique shoots, and it looks fantastic. And you'll see that in the video as well. But the reason why I shared this video is because this whole entire podcast is highlighting what is actually real for them. What can they actually achieve? And I think this video really covers that as well. So definitely go check that out.
Yeah, and it's funny because I've had this little made small efforts on my little YouTube channel, and I did a video of me doing like a 65k training session, and the only 2 comments I got, someone was saying that I was on juice, I was on steroids, and the other guy was like, nice chest, can you start posting videos of your chest workouts? I'm like, fuck me, this is the last thing that I wanted to talk about. But that's the internet. That is where the internet is. And I don't overly blame the internet for it, because it's people like Liver King that force people to put their guard up and then feel a need to tear people down. But usually the people tearing people down are the ones that sit on the fucking couch just with no context whatsoever of what it actually takes to be fit, which is again what this podcast is about. We even had a I actually don't even remember what her name is. And we've talked about this particular member in the past, but they did the challenge when they were starving themselves. And it's such a great story of how attached an individual can get to one particular idea and have zero interest in exploring any other ideas. And this individual, they joined one of our, I think it was
a 30-day challenge.
It was our 30-day challenge. And that's for the record. We were never into doing challenges, but challenges really do engage people, and what we do, the reason why we put this content out is that we want to put this deeper, more I don't know if it's more engaging, but more engaging content out there to help harmonize the fact that yes, challenges do sell. Yeah, that's why we have run challenges for our gym, and good people genuinely want to get involved in it. But what this individual they saw the word challenge, and this is why we market things a lot different. We market our specific challenge differently. But what they did was they saw the word challenge and they entered our challenge with the intention to win it. and the intention to beat everyone else. And they had previously signed up for a bodybuilding type program with this bodybuilding coach effectively, and she was just put on a super low calorie diet. She was super starved and she was super dehydrated, but she lost a lot of weight, and then she was a lot more thinner and leaner. She did a photo shoot and she basically come in saying, this is I'm gonna look like this, and she was so fixated on that style that when she joined our challenge and we were giving her the training program, the nutrition plan to follow, she actually just disregarded it, but she didn't get the result because her body was so fried. It had had too much damage from being starved that when she employed the same routine and the same strategy, it wasn't effective the second time around. And she actually just, she ghosted us, as a matter of fact, I believe.
Yeah, she complained because it was a $500 prize. And so we gave $500 to the winner, male or female, and it was body composition.
I remember now.
And body composition is the shift between muscle and fat. So it's the body fat percentage. And so for her mindset was, I'm going to fast, starve myself, and just lose as much weight as possible. And she did lose more weight overall than the winner of the challenge. However, she also lost muscle, and so her body fat percentage and her body composition stayed the same. And she really struggled to understand that, because in her mind, I'm going to win $500 and win this challenge because I've lost the most amount of weight. When in fact, the person that won maybe lost about a kilo less than her in total body weight, however, had gained kilograms of muscle in those 30 days as well. And so that's kind of what we started off the conversation with, is some people don't even understand body composition changes. They think just weight loss is the goal. When it's not weight loss, it's fat mass that we're trying to lose. And we're trying to improve on healthy tissue like muscle.
Yes, absolutely. Let's do a little camera reset so we can make that all good, and then we will be finishing our sign off with maybe our fourth mystery sound. I'm a bit untrusting of the dashboard.
This one's green. I feel confident.
All right.
Actually, I don't know if I do.
Nav's going to hit the green when we come right back. Fuck, here we go. All right, mystery sound.
Are you ready? Should we
Yeah.
try it out? All right, 3, 2. All right, nothing. I'm okay with nothing, to be honest.
Yeah. All right, okay. So this is an incident. There's a whole Netflix documentary on that. Do you want to see if you've got to bring up apple cider vinegar on Google/ChatGPT. So I'm going to read this. This is an Instagram account that we all follow. It's called Influencers in the Wild. I love this account because it's great for memes. But they just talked about influencers and things that's going on and fake influencers. And this headline is called "Influencer Who Faked Having Brain Cancer and Cured Herself to Sell Health Products Now Has a Netflix Documentary." So Belle Gibson is an influencer who falsely claimed to have cured herself of brain cancer through diet and holistic treatments, leveraged the narrative into a successful app, the Whole Pantry, a cookbook, and a significant online following. Her platform promoted alternative treatments over conventional medicine, attracting widespread attention and commercial success. However, investigations later revealed that she had fabricated her medical history, leading to allegations of deception and fraud. Netflix's latest series, Apple Cider Vinegar, chronicles the rise and fall of Belle Gibson, who built a wellness empire based on false claims and deception. The series explores how Gibson gained influence through her health brand, which promoted alternative treatments before facing exposure for fabricating her medical history. The thing that perplexes me about that is, how does someone get to that level without being torn down? That's what it really is, that the bell curve, the metaphor of what must go up, what goes up must come down. But I am still shocked. I'm genuinely shocked about how successful someone can get at that level before someone's like, hey, this is fucking weird.
Yeah.
Like it's look, to go into the diet and the holistic treatments, there's such a big following of just using nutrition and holistic treatments to actually overcome things, and there's a lot of good case studies of how they have achieved that. And for the record, Nav and I really respect and love a lot of those protocols as well, but there's a very clear line that someone should not cross. I mean, it comes to just blatantly talking shit. And maybe this individual, like, I haven't really found out about her up until later time. So maybe that's because we spend a lot of our time in the actual scene, that there is like a fake fitness industry where the people that are in the fitness industry don't even know about the fake fitness industry, because we're living the health and fitness world where a lot of these other influencers are actually they're marketing and they're putting content out to people that just have no involvement in health and fitness anyway. So then they what they assume is popular, and if they see someone with, let's say, 1 million followers, they just assume that everyone in the fitness space knows them. But they're not in the fitness space; they're in the marketing space. They're in the business space, and that's a whole different thing. And I don't watch TV that much. I don't think I'm ever going to watch the documentary, but that is just a phenomenal example of how people can just really shift. Someone can really just shift the mentality of people. And there's a lot of people that are just willing to spend money on anything. So I get that. Do you have anything to add to that, Nav?
Nah, but it's crazy. I'm glad that there is a Netflix series on it. Because it is something that needs to be addressed, especially now we're having AI that's involved in social media and Google. There's a lot that's occurring that people are unaware of, and they can't discern what is real and what is fake. So I'm glad that there is this series coming out, because I think people do need to question what they're seeing and the information they're being provided as well. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's one of the key takeaways as we move into what our practical action steps is, like, what can you guys do to make sure that you're not getting fooled by people like this? And really the main thing is just to ask questions, to really have a lot more of a question everything mindset. Just instead of assuming that everyone's out there to help you, start to assume that everyone's out there to maybe sell something, or really just understand that everybody has some sort of motive when they're going into things. And as we now understand it takes a lot of effort to actually get famous, and it takes a lot of actual business effort to launch a business like that. So you can't just do things out of charity these days, and it's not as easy to do things out of put your story out there out of passion, because the social media space is now fully monetized. So now it's everything's marketed, and the rate of success in the social media space is so much more refined now that only those who are succeeding are generally those who are most calculated. And even as I'm saying, there's a runner guy that I've never run with him, but we communicate online. We share stories, and he's been quite successful in building a really great following, and he's really good for his long form content, and what he shares his perspective is really respectable. But what's happening is he's actually getting screwed by the algorithm, because everyone that loves his opinions, the algorithm's just like, well, fuck, we don't care too much about your long videos anymore, mate. We need more sharper stuff. And despite him changing his core messaging, his views are actually going down. And then he's putting stuff out like, what the fuck do I do? And then I was like, hey man, I'm just going to tell you, like, I had some success with YouTube when I was putting this stuff out, but he's now stepping into the space where he's spending all these hours training, and now he's spending all this extra time making videos and posting content, and then he's starting his uni degree. And then he's becoming so spread thin on trying to fit everything else in. And it's that one of our marketing coaches was saying that you can't take your likes at the bank. And he's getting punished by that story, by that metaphor, is the fact that he still needs to put food on the table, and his fight for freedom and his fight for actually putting good content out there is actually being pushed against. He's getting resistance because the world we live in. So anyway, ask lots of questions. Moving forward into more practical action steps, the first thing is to really, really ask yourself, what is it that you actually want, and really spend that time identifying that clear goal, whether it's your core physique that you want to create, or in my case, it's a race that you want to do. You want to maybe sign up for the HBF Run for a Reason, which is coming up that we're doing for the members, or it's any sort of running race or any sort of event that you would like to do. Make sure you're very clear on that, and spend some time taking the time to understanding how much time it actually takes. Like, this is what I'm taking, a huge amount of clarity. What else, Nav?
So once you've done that, find your starting point. So some form of measurement that identifies where you currently are now in relationship to the goal that you're trying to achieve. And something that is repeatable, something that is what you don't measure, you can't manage, right? And so you need to find something that you can measure now and along the journey for you to actually succeed. So that will be the next step. That could be something like body scan or measurements, some sort of pace testing like you're mentioning, or it could even be like a strength test if you're doing something like bodybuilding or Olympic lifting or CrossFit, for example, or even high rocks. Do a mock high rocks event.
A race simulation.
See how much time it takes you. Maybe you don't go to 100%, maybe go at 80% or something, just to kind of feel out where you're at.
Yeah, you really have to calibrate where you're at. And once you've got that bit of calibration or that testing in place, are we really recommending finding people who are more experienced or just more seasoned in that discipline, and they have that understanding, they have more of a perspective on what's normal and what's not, and what's realistic and what's not. That's when you really utilize people in your network to give you that understanding of, hey, is this a realistic goal for me to choose? Otherwise, you're just going to pick a goal, chase it, and potentially just get completely screwed over. You might get injured or anything. Or worst case scenario, you just get so disappointed in the process that you just give up altogether, and then you're heading in whatever direction you're going, which is not in the fitness direction.
Yeah, so once you have examples and stories, people to follow that are realistic, then you just got to keep on that path.
Yeah.
You just got to keep doing it. You got to regularly test yourself. You got to follow the habits day in, day out. Recognize, if you've done the first couple of steps correctly, you should have 3 months, 6 months, 12-month goals already in place anyway. So recognizing it's going to take you that amount of time, staying true to that rate of progression, use calibration, so weekly, monthly testing to make sure you're on the right path.
Yes.
And then also intentionally, which you wrote here, which I think is great as well, intentionally make mistakes to explore what works and what doesn't work.
I didn't write intentionally. I wrote intentionally. Intentionally.
But even in saying that, maybe not even like intentionally make mistakes, intentionally allow mistakes possibly, because in reality, we don't need to make mistakes because being a human being, we're going to make mistakes along the way. So maybe just allow mistakes to occur and test and trial and make sure they don't occur again, because we do want to make sure we learn. Don't just allow mistakes to consistently, the same mistake to consistently occur as well.
Yeah.
The tricky line.
It is. And that's really what we need to be doing, is focusing on the consistency of just showing up, because if you need to stick with the thing, otherwise you got nothing to test and measure. And if you're inconsistent with something, then the results from the testing and measure are also really they're invalidated in a way, because they're just not overly true. So if you can stick to things, then you can allow things to be messy, you can allow yourself to learn. And the more feedback that you're gaining is the thing that's going to help you the most, because the more you understand your body and how your body responds to the thing will help you identify whether this thing is even serving you in the first place. Sometimes we pick goals out of insecurity and ego, which is a super common thing. And having this more, let's say this whole alternate view on approaching your goals, it allows you to really filter out what goals are actually worthwhile and what's going to bring you the most fulfillment. Because that's really, at the end of the day, what we're after. We're after we want to be fulfilled with our time spent in whatever that is. And so we want all of our actions to serve us rather than our actions punishing us. And that's really how you should be going about things, is utilize the fact that it's 2024 or 2025. Utilize the fact,
46 days already in.
As far as your immunity shot went, it's 2024 because it's expired. But utilize the fact that there's a lot of good tech and there's a lot of good options these days to actually, whether it's softwares or whether it's good technology of just these watches and trackers and sleep trackers or whatever, or apps, or knowledgeable people that give you that understanding of what's working and what's not working. Mystery item.
Yeah, which is actually perfect, because that kind of dives into my mystery items to talk about measuring.
Oh, hey.
So,
who would have thought Nav would be bringing something related to measuring?
Well, this is funny. So my mystery item is a journal.
Yay.
But ideally, this was I was choosing this for tracking your exercising, right?
Oh, yeah, nice.
I was just like, I'm going to go grab one of the books that I have. One of my journals, because I probably have a good 20 of these books that are completely filled with my writing. This is an actual journal one. Funny enough, my very first entry is the 15th of October 2018. I still, to this day, 2025 now, so 7 years ago, the last 7 years, I've journaled every single day, which is unreal. And here I have my wins, my learns, and my gratitudes as well. So always end on some sort of gratitude and some sort of goal and plan for the day. But the reason why I did bring this is because back in the day, prior to having apps, I would write on paper. It then evolved into me tracking on Excel sheets and documents. And now we have our own training app where we track all of our training, or most of our clients do track all their training on the app, so they could see their total volume, their progression, they could track their weight, they could track their calories, they could track anything. And I do believe in what you don't measure, you can't manage. It's even something that Alex Hormozi talks about when he takes over businesses. One of the first things he does is he sets specific KPIs, and he finds that simply putting eyes on the KPI itself improves the KPI, because if you're constantly looking at something and recognizing that, or recognizing where it's at, it instantly creates some form of change within you to create a change, whether it's mentally or emotionally or what have you. If you're seeing that your results aren't occurring by weighing yourself every single day, that's going to trigger you to make a change. And I know for some people it might be challenging to do that, to really look at what is occurring. But I think slowly over time, the more you could expose yourself to the truth by measuring your workouts or measuring your weight or measuring your calories or what have you, the more truth you have and more self-awareness you have to create discipline, to create change.
Yeah. Very good. I'm a big fan of journaling. As on and off as I am, I fucking love to journal. Yeah. I've actually been using personally, well, I think you use ChatGPT for your journaling now as well, is that right?
Yeah, so I do audio. This is how much I journal. I do audio journaling in my car rides twice a day, and then I write in my habit share, like maybe 5 times a day. Kind of like Hormozy style, where he writes notes just constantly throughout the day.
Yeah.
And now I write on my habit share, I'll have the time and the actual journal that I have, because it would actually, interestingly enough, now I've been doing this so religiously for a good couple of years on habit share. It does show how much I can shift within a day as well. Morning, midday, afternoon, my relationship with something can change dramatically depending on what I've experienced.
Yeah, that's great. And that's what I've been using as of most late as well, is ChatGPT. And I just love, and I do the same thing. I actually was a bit annoyed. I was ranting to ChatGPT because you can just send a voice message and just keep talking shit. And you can submit the whole thing, but my screen just keeps going off. And just keeps
You're talking for that long?
Yeah. I was talking for 5 minutes.
I do for like 4 minutes at a time now, because sometimes the transcript won't actually process if it's over that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I've talked some shit to ChatGPT these days. I feel sorry for a day. So my mystery item is actually is right behind me. So it's technically a double item, but I wanted to bring the double item is because the first half of the item is actually my watch, which is an item that's always on me. So that's the sound of my watch, just jingling in front of the microphone. But this is just it's a Garmin Phoenix, if anyone knows what that is. But it's just a GPS watch. It's an athlete smartwatch basically, and I use this to track all of my runs. And second to that is I actually bought, which is the counterpart to that, is the heart rate monitor. And the heart rate monitor, the only reason I bought the heart rate monitor is because all the pros wear heart rate monitors, and I just wanted to be sick. And every time I would do a big race, I'd have a big plummeting phase of depression, and I usually would rely on a small amount of retail therapy. And it became a part of a ritual, is that after every big race, I would reward myself with a new item which was related to the sport. So I'd always buy a new pair of sunnies or a new piece of kit for the bike or whatever. But the heart rate monitor is something that's fascinating because basically I've been following one of the top high rocks athletes for a while now, and he was notorious for wearing his heart rate monitor during his high rock sessions. And as the sport grew, so did the sales of heart rate monitors, to the point that all the guys that are doing high rocks now are all wearing heart rate monitors. And it actually makes me want to wear mine less now, because I look like a high rocks athlete when I'm just running down the road straight with no shirt on. But it's pure placebo, because the heart rate, most people don't even look at the heart rate numbers. They just want to be seen using it. So there is the fact that this is just an idea. It's an example of somebody just like myself being just ego-based motivation to buy this, the impulse buy this heart rate monitor. But the thing that was also quite fascinating is that as a coach, I genuinely did use the heart rate data to understand my body more. And then what I started doing was actually comparing my heart rate data to what the elites were actually doing. And once I actually really delved into what the elites were doing, I was like, I need to turn around. I need to stop getting this serious about the sport, because I was getting so sucked in to trying to be an elite and realizing that the rest of my life was going to fall apart because I was so hyper fixated on trying to perform at the same level as those athletes were. And I started to dial back. And even though my performance was meant to drop, it didn't. It actually increased, because my levels of fatigue went down and my levels of happiness went up, because I was no longer comparing myself to these high-level athletes that I was always aspiring to be like. So there's a big metaphor behind this heart rate monitor. And that's me.
Nice.
That's our podcast
First one of 2025.
No, I'm not going to say that. First one of 2025. Thank you very much for listening. It's been an absolute pleasure. And we will see you in the next episode where we talk about fitting in fitness again.